Thank you, everybody, for coming. For me, it's very exciting to have this opportunity to talk to the peer community in both the broad initiative and the journal sub-initiative into that. For me, it has impacted my life greatly in the last year or two. I've decided like a year ago that I'm going to try and transition everything that I do with my team and my thesis students into registered reports. And by far, the most innovative initiative that I've seen come out of that is this Registered Reports 2.0 under the PCI umbrella, the Peer Community in Registered Reports. And of everything that I've ever experienced in my very short academic career, this has been by far the most positive, constructive experience that I've had, and it's just a pleasure to see how this thing is working. So we have recommenders who are trained and have certification and know open science and understand registered reports under this umbrella, and really shifting the power from the for-profit publishers into the community. So first time in my life, after getting an in-principle acceptance, journals contact me in order to see whether I'll be able to consider them to publish with them, and then me being able to ask them things like waiving fees. So revolutionary in every possible sense. So it was really nice for us to be able to make this link through Twitter, and for the PCI co-founders to come in and dedicate some of their time to discuss this with us. So as I understand it, we'll have half an hour of a presentation, and then we're going to just like open it up for a discussion. Prepare your questions, and hopefully we'll have a lively discussion. I know that I have a lot of questions. So the floor is yours. Please share the presentation and take it from here.
Thanks a lot for this very nice introduction. So we really enjoyed it. Thanks for inviting us. So what we will do is two voices. So I will start the presentation, and Thomas will follow up on the middle of the presentation. So as said by Gilad, we will present peer community in the general initiative and peer community journal. So this is an initiative we started with Thomas. Now it is 6 years ago, and with Thomas and Benoît Facon, and now Marjolaine Hamelin also is working with us. So in a single sentence, it will be from Preprint Recommendation to Diamond Open Access publication, and you will understand why. So we started PCI because we considered that the publication system is facing several problems. And one of them is the quality issues with published articles. So we probably know that better than us, probably, that there is a low power of statistical analysis in many papers. There is some kind of hacking, which is hypothesis stated after results are known, which is clearly not good for making science. There is some hacking as well. And if you think about papers, you can see that in many times the raw data are not available, the methods are not detailed and not complete, the parameters are not described, and the scripts and code are not available. So it ends up with a kind of crisis in biology, with an estimate of 20 to 60% of the studies that are non-reproducible, which is a lot. The second issue is that the publication system is quite inefficient, because the peer review is a long process. And you have probably experienced this with the submission rejections in cascade. So you try a journal, you have rejection, and you try another journal. So it can take several months to several years before readers can read a paper. There is a waste of evaluation effort, and reviewers. There is also a reviewers availability issue, because it's hard to find reviewers. And so by this system, we need a lot of reviewers, which is not good. Also, the system is quite non-transparent. The evaluation process is a kind of black box, because the reviews are not published. The editorial decisions as well are usually not published. The editor is not always known, and the conflicts of interest are not always stated. Also, a major criticism of the publication system, it is a closed system, because most of the publications are still behind paywalls, so you cannot not have access directly. So probably by your university, you can you can have access to many, if not all, papers published, but for citizens, for a lot of people, they do not have access to the paper. So worldwide, the publications, the percentage of publications behind paywall is 70%. In Europe, it's a bit better with 64%. And in France, it's even better, but still there is 50% of the publications behind paywalls. And the last reason for starting PCI is that the publication system is very costly for our institutions, with a lot of profit margins for the publishers. I don't know in Hong Kong, but in France, it is a market of 150 million per year. In Europe, it is a market of 3 billion, and worldwide, 10 billion. So this is for an estimate of 3 million articles published per year. So it gives an average cost of 3,000 euro per article. So it's not only a big business, but look at the profit margins of the companies. You can recognize Elsevier, Springer Nature, Wiley, Informa. So the average profit margin is like it's between 35 and 40%, which is huge. I mean, compare, for example, we put the figures for big companies like Walmart, Toyota, Exxon. They don't make so much profit. So, and why they are making so much money and so big profit margins? Because this is where paying twice, notably in hybrid journals. So your institutions and my institutions, they are paying for, they subscribe to journals, so we have access to the papers. But we pay a lot of article processing charges, even if we have a waiver, as you say, Gilad, but we usually pay thousands of dollars to put our articles in open access. So in those hybrid journals. And think about it, we are even paying thrice because we are paid by our institutions, and in our time, we are evaluating, editing, proofreading, and formatting articles. So the idea of PCI is clearly to reappropriate the publication system. And now we have a double system, a combination process with peer community in for the evaluation. And we have now the peer community journal for publishing the recommended preprint. We will explain this in details. So as I say, double. So PCI loads the peer review process of preprints, and in case of recommendation, people can publish in peer community journal. So the aim of PCI is clearly to create communities of researchers handling the evaluation through peer review and recommending preprints and registered reports, in the case of PCI, registered reports in their scientific field. So authors can deposit their preprint in bioRxiv, in Archive, in Zenodo. In the French system, they can use HAL, but there are many preprint servers. And we have started different communities. With Benoit and Thomas, we are evolutionary biologists. So we started PCI evolutionary biology, then PCI ecology, many of them. We have now 16 PCIs, and Thomas will give you the details. So how does PCI works? So it's an important slide. If people, so I'm not talking about registered reports, and we could talk a little bit then during the discussion. I'm talking about general PCI. So if you want, for example, to submit a preprint in ecology, you will deposit it in the preprint server. We will ask you also to deposit your data scripts and code in an open repository. Once you have done this, you go to the corresponding PCI website. So you see, if it is a preprint in ecology, you will go to the PCI ecology website. There you can find a submission form. You fill it. You will have to put the name of the authors, the abstract, and most importantly, you will give the link to your preprint in the preprint server. What you will do also is you will suggest recommenders, and the recommenders at PCI are the equivalent of associate editors in traditional journals. So there is a validation step by the managing board. And once they have validated the submission, the recommenders, those associate editors, will receive an alert email saying that there is a new submission. They can have a look to the preprint in the preprint server. It can happen that none of the recommenders are interested by the preprint, and in that case, the preprint is not considered by the PCI, and authors can submit it elsewhere. But if one of the recommenders is interested by the paper, they will organize a peer review process. Through the website, they will invite reviewers, and based on at least 2 peer reviews, they will make an editorial decision. The editorial decision can be to reject the paper, like in a journal, or it can be to ask revisions to the authors, and in that case, they will deposit a second version of the preprint answering the remarks and the comments made by the reviewers. So there can be several rounds of peer reviews. The third possibility is an acceptance of the paper. So even if there are several rounds of peer reviews, the paper will be rejected or accepted. And in case of acceptation, there will be 2 things happening. First, the authors will deposit a final version of the preprint. This will be the PCI recommended preprint, still in the preprint server. And the recommender will write a recommendation text, which is a kind of news and view. And we will publish this recommendation text and all the reviews and all the editorial correspondence on the PCI website. So this is just to give you an idea about how a PCI recommended preprint looks like. So at the end of the process, we provide authors a template for formatting their paper. So this is a paper recommended by PCI Evolutionary Biology. Readers can know that the paper has been peer-reviewed and recommended by this PCI. And this is to give you an example of a recommendation text published on the PCI website. So you can see that this one has been recommended by Trine Bilde and Matteo Fumagalli. So it has been co-recommended based on 3 anonymous reviewers. So the recommendation has a title. You can see the title of the preprint recommended by those 2 recommenders. And behind, you can see the beginning of the recommendation, and below the recommendation, you will have access to the peer review process. So everything is published in open access with open peer review, open data, open code. And this PCI recommended preprint can be considered as a final, valid, findable, and citable article. So I let Thomas follow up on that. So what you can do with your PCI recommended preprint.
Then you just explain how it works at PCI, and the final product is a preprint that is valid and that you can use as an article that would have been published in a journal. So it has the same value. But the fact is that many scientists, many colleagues, they do want to have a publication in a journal, not for scientific reasons, but for career reasons, for their evaluations, for their CV, etc., etc. And it looks like it is very important because they have continuously asked this to us since the beginning of this initiative. So we accept this, okay, and we try to find a solution to allow the authors to publish their PCI recommended preprints in journals, okay? So there are many solutions that we propose, and one of the solutions is the peer community journal. So basically, the solutions are this one. So the authors, they can leave their article on the preprint server if they think that the preprint is okay, if they really play the game, okay? So they can leave their article here in the preprint server as a preprint, or they can directly transfer the article for publication to the peer community journal, which is a direct publication in a Diamond open access journal. Or they can use, they can submit their PCI recommended preprint to one of the PCI-friendly journals, and we have many of them, and I will explain what it is. Or they can simply submit their article to any journals that would accept the submission of preprints. So the PCI-friendly journals, what is it? So it's a group of journals of which the editors-in-chief have accepted a kind of a commitment toward the evaluation of PCI. So there are 3 categories of these journals. There is a top category with a high commitment, and these journals, they will accept your PCI recommended article without further peer reviews, okay? So it's a very fast process. And here you have the small list of these journals. And here you have a larger list of journals that are very friendly, but they are specific to PCI registered report. Okay, so PCI registered report has a specific list of PCI friendly journals accepting article without further peer reviews, because the evaluation of registered report is a very, very good one. There is a second category of PCI friendly journals, which is a medium commitment. And in this category, the editors-in-chief, they will provide the authors with a fast response to a pre-submission inquiry. And typically in less than 5 days, they would tell the authors if they would accept the article without further peer reviews, if they would need further peer reviews, or if they are not interested by your article. And in this category, there are many journals, mainly in biology, and many of them are in ecology and evolution because it's an historical reason. And there is a third category of PCI-friendly journal with a low commitment, okay? So these journals, they just may use the evaluations of PCI if they think the evaluations are adequate and if the articles are adequate. So there are a large number of journals here in this category. So these were the PCI-friendly journals. And now just a small presentation of the peer community journals. So it's a journal that belongs to the peer community in association. We have created this journal in November 2021, so a year ago. So it's a very young journal. It accepts as is and only as is any article and only recommended article. Okay, so you have to go through PCI first and then you use the peer community journal. It is free for the readers and for the authors, so it is a diamond open access journal. Okay, and there are some subventions and some funding that allows the journal to work, but the readers and the authors, they do not pay. We have published more than 130 articles since November 21. There are 15 sections that corresponds to the 15 thematic PCIs, including PCI registered reports that can publish in this journal. And we start to be indexed in the big databases like the GOHA, the CAB abstract, and of course you can find this journal in the search engines such as Dimension, Google Scholar, etc. And we have applied to be indexed in other databases like PubMed, Web of Science, etc. So you have here an example of an article that has been published in the peer community journal. And here you have just a screenshot of the homepage of the journal. So if I summarize the possibilities that we offer the authors to publish the article, they have these three possibilities. And the interesting thing here is that if the authors are not satisfied by the editorial decisions of the PCI-friendly journals or of the other journals, for instance, because these journals require additional peer reviews, okay? If you are not satisfied, you can go back at the beginning of this loop and you can make a new choice. You can choose again the peer community journal, or you can choose another PCI-friendly journal or another journal. And you can do that many times with the very same evaluation sets of reviews, okay? So there are no new reviews each time. It's with the same review that you can do this several times, and you can always choose the peer community journal at any time. So basically, you can know within a few days if one or more PCI-friendly journals are interested by your article and if they will request or not further peer review. And you will get always 100% chance to publish rapidly because there is this free open access journal, peer community journal, in which you can publish everything that has been recommended by the PCI. And the consequence of the use of the PCI and the peer community journal is that there will be big savings for research agencies because the estimate of the cost of a paper through PCI and PCJ is about 150 euros per paper. Okay, so let's say $150, it's approximately the same for each paper at equilibrium. Okay, we have made this estimate at equilibrium if we receive many papers. So this is to be compared to the 3,000 euros Denis talked about before. So the cost for the society is very different. The results are accessible to all and right away because we use preprints. So readers can read the preprints, of course. There is a big transparency of many things, data, methods, scripts, evaluations, because everything is published and the deposit of data, scripts, and methods are mandatory. The editorial policy of journals is replaced by a clear and argued recommendation text that looks like a news and views. And there is a single evaluation for many journals. Okay, this is very important not to waste the energy of reviewers. And it's a kind of a mean to break the publisher business. And also, it's a kind of recognition of reviewers and recommenders' work, because we publish their peer reviews and assessment at the end of the process in case of acceptance of the articles. So just some figures about PCI. So we now have 16 peer communities in. One of the peer community just opened last week. We have received a bit more than 600 articles. So these numbers are quite low, but the initiative is young. We have more than 1,900 recommenders playing the role of associate editors among all PCIs. We have many PCI-friendly journals, and we have many supporting organizations that support us both symbolically and financially. And this is why it can work, and why it can work for at least the 10 following years. Okay, we have a budget for the 10 following years. So these are the PCIs that do work currently, that do exist. So we started with evolutionary biology. And last week, we opened this PCI Health and Movement Sciences here. And we have many other PCIs, as you can see. They are mainly in science and technique, okay, mainly, and mostly in biology. And there is this PCI registered report, which is very particular, very specific. We have many supports, and this is why we can function. So many supports are French, because this is a French initiative at the beginning, okay, but it expanded, and now we have many other supports from outside France. Of course, we have many universities in the UK, for instance, supporting us with the University of Oxford, Imperial College, the University College London, which is not written here, but it's a case. We have the help of some Max Planck Institute, etc., etc. We have also the support of some learned societies. So it's mostly also in biology, but here you can see STORK, which is a society in movement and health sciences. And we also get some funds, some punctual funds from the French government here. Here we have a project, which is a very big project, which is the COAR Notified project. So it's led by the Confederation of Open Access Repositories. And the idea is to have automatic notifications between our service, PCI, and open access repositories to let the readers know that there have been some peer reviews and recommendation of some articles that you can read on the open access repository. Okay. So if you are interested by participating to all of this, what you can do is first to go to this page on the website of peercommunityIn.org, and you go to the PCI manifesto, and there you can sign to tell that you want to submit an article before the end of 2023, okay? And if accepted, that you will publish it in the peer community journal. So the idea is that if you want to participate, you have to be sure that you won't be alone to participate, okay? So this is why the promise would be bound only if at least 500 other researchers sign the manifesto. And it looks like you will have to, because there are already more than 800 scientists that have signed this manifesto so far. But you can continue to sign, and we would like to go to achieve at least 1,000 signatures. It would be very, very, very nice. So you can go on this and sign the manifesto. You can, of course, submit your article to PCI, publish in Peer Community Journal, join us as reviewers and recommenders. And the thing that we advise is that you create a profile on the PCI that you want, for instance, PCI ecology, if you want to be a reviewer for ecology. And you can ask us also, if you want to become a recommender, you can just contact us, and we will tell how to do that. You can follow us on Twitter and Mastodon. So now we have an address in Mastodon, and you can also be interested in creating new PCIs in some specific fields. And more generally, it's a good thing to participate to real open science. So the real one, the one that is free, that you can really access openly and freely. And this is also, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, remarks, criticism, I think that we would be very pleased with Denis to answer anything. So thank you again.
Great. Thank you very much. Very nice overview of this initiative. Any questions from our audience, the people who are here? Anything you want to ask? You can also type it in the questions. So maybe while people are thinking and hopefully typing, I'll just ask, and I guess this is the most obvious question and something that I get asked a lot when I said I'm submitting to PCI, is why would somebody do this? You know, there's the altruistic, we care about science, and this seems like more credible science, open science, and all of that. But obviously, we're embedded in a system. There's a status quo and a very strong pressure for people, especially HKU, really cares about rankings and impact factors, and everything about the way that we are evaluated has to do with that. So let's say an early career researcher, a student postdoc, or a more established professor, tenure track and beyond, ask themselves, why should I submit to PCI? How would you respond to these kinds of questions?
I can start on that. It's really depending on your system and how much you are evaluated by metrics and all that stuff, impact factors. So in France, we are quite lucky with evaluation committees starting to not use impact factors. So that's great. And putting in your file, you can just talk about 5 good papers and explain why those papers are good papers. And in that case, a recommendation by PCI, a publication in peer community journal makes sense. I mean, it can be even better than the traditional journals, even in a good impact factor journal. But in a system where it's still embedded in metrics, it's more difficult clearly. But still, you can still use PCI as you are using, like registered reports, and then go in a traditional journal, high impact factor journal in that case. And you can use also the regular PCI, not registered reports, for doing the same evaluation, having a recommendation, and go to try to a PCI-friendly journal. So it's good for you, I mean, because you have an evaluation and a recommendation, and it's a good step to have to be accepted in a good journal. And it's good for PCI because you are using PCI, you make PCI more known, and which is good for us, which is good for the initiative. Thomas,
if I just may complete the reasons also that you can invoke if you want to publish in this system, is that so of course there is something like a political reasons. Okay, you may want, because you are motivated for political reason, you may want to use it, of course. And also there are some places where people want to publish in open access and they can't because they have to pay these APCs. Okay, and so they just don't have the possibility to pay 2,000 or 3,000 euros to publish in open access. So this is a mean to publish in open access without paying anything, and it's very important for many countries and many researchers. And also you can have the idea that when you publish in classical journals that are owned by big companies, okay, like Elsevier, like Springer Nature, etc., you can have the feeling that the entrance of your article in the evaluation process and in the publication process is due to some reasons that are not scientific, but that are linked to business and to economy. Okay, and by using a system that is completely led by scientists, that is led by the scientific community for the scientific community, without any business model taken from big companies, you can have the idea that it would be a better evaluation, it would be a better system, and it would the reasons why your article will be published will be completely scientific and not due to some social reasons, economic reasons, etc., etc. So there is this kind of independence from the economic power that can be also, even if it's not a political reason, it's just a scientific reason. Okay, you can prefer to choose a system which is led by a scientist and only by a scientist.
Gilad, by the
Thank
way,
you.
I would be interested by your answer to the same question.
Yeah, I've distanced myself from incentives deliberately. I just try to ignore this, and I think that at the end, just being transparent about what you do. So having a recommendation from somebody like Chris Chambers saying how wonderful the process is, and everybody being able to see the reviews, to me is great, because everybody can evaluate this. If it's a closed system by some reputable journal, like nobody knows what happened in the background. So for me, everything that increases transparency allows me to better communicate the quality of what it is that I've done. Which is actually, it's something, perhaps there's another question, so I'll come back to what I wanted to say. What was the question here? Thanks a lot for the very interesting talk and the great initiative. As someone who spent many years at CNRS before joining HKU, I can only confirm that while your approach seems well adapted to CNRS, for instance, here at HKU, the pressure to publish with high impact factor is really strong. And even if you really like open science, transparent processes, you will simply target the options your employer likes the best. And I have to say that I'm also under this kind of pressure, and it's very difficult to resist.
So we have an answer for that, because this is the reason why we created these categories of the PCI-friendly journals. So with the PCI-friendly journals, you can combine the two options. So you can be evaluated by PCI, and then you can publish in one of these journals that can have a high impact factor, and that can be very well respected by universities like HKU. For instance, we had until last week as a PCI-friendly journal, we had eLife, who was very happy to get some papers from PCI, okay, because they knew that the evaluation had... so now it's different. So now it's different because they changed their model, and there are no more PCI-friendly journals, okay, because there are no more journals. But there are many journals, for instance, in ecology and evolution, that are very well known, and they have high impact factors, etc. And that's part, and they are part of these PCI-friendly journals. So you can do both, in fact.
Yes, I saw like in PCI in registered reports, I saw that one of the first ones who signed up is like Nature Human Behavior, which in our field is a big name, but most recently Journal of Experimental Psychology General and a few others that originally I would never think a for-profit to join this kind of thing, because it seems like almost a contradiction of models. How do you think about the threat that this poses the for-profit, and how they perceive you, and some reactions perhaps that they had to this initiative?
That's really bizarre, because we are currently too small to be a problem for them, so they just ignore them. They ignore us. What they do, actually, they profit from us by having reviews already done. So that's quite good for them. So in the long term, I'm not sure it's a good idea for them for supporting PCI. We'll see, but yeah, currently it's probably they don't see us as a problem. And again, editor-in-chief can have good submissions with all the reviews done, which is good for them. So.
And there is a kind of a contradiction from our side also, because we collaborate with journals that belong to these private companies, etc. But the fact is that the collaboration is more with the editorial boards than with the journals themselves. Okay, and the editorial boards, they are colleagues, they are scientists like us, and they are friends and colleagues, etc. So we collaborate with them. And the second point is that we think it is a temporary solution. So it's just a temporary solution for PCI to be more and more known. And when it will be very well known, and when people will use PCI, we won't need anymore this PCI-friendly journal category. And I think that we will stop this collaboration with the PCI-friendly journals, because it won't be necessary anymore.
But our guess is that people won't be any more interested by going in PCI-friendly journals, costly PCI-friendly journals, when the peer community journal will be sufficiently known, very well indexed. People will be very attractive, and it's already the case. Just by the way, I mean, most of the authors of PCI recommended preprint choose to publish it in peer community journal currently. So maybe not for registered reports, or that may be different, but for the regular preprints submitted to the 15 other PCIs. And so clearly they are attracted by peer community journal.
Yes, I'm kind of curious. So initially, when I saw registered reports, I already thought this is revolutionary, and I had a hard time imagining like how we can improve this even further. I had some discussions with people, and then came PCIRR, and I'm like, oh my God, there's so many things that we can tackle that we haven't addressed before. And I guess it's also the same with preprints, and then peer community comes in and revolutionizes the way that we think about community and preprints. I'm curious whether you can see like a PCI 2.0 or 3.0. Like, is there a future what you aim to include above what exists?
Good
question.
Now, what we want to improve actually is the link to the data code script. We are not as good as we want on that, because it takes a lot of time for checking, and a lot of people are not they are not pay attention enough for this, so they do not deposit very well their preprint, their data, their script and code. So we have to improve this. So this is one thing we can do.
Yeah, and so we would need, for instance, data and script editors, okay, to specifically check this kind of thing. So this is an improvement we could do. And there is also something very important that we are not able to tackle currently. It's the problem of multilingualism. So there is everybody has to write in English currently to submit to PCI and then to publish in PCJ. And this is a problem because there are many disciplines, and specifically in humanities and social science, where the people, they do not write in English, they write in German, they write in Chinese, they write in Arabic, they write in, and they cannot use a system like the peer community in system. So here we have a real problem, and we have to think hard how we can solve this problem and how we can accept papers, submissions of papers coming from outside the English-speaking region of the world. Yeah. And so this is a very important thing we have to think about, and currently it's very difficult.
And another improvement where we are working on is Thomas told you a little bit about that with the project with Notify, with the COA, Confederation of Open Access Repositories, to make an interoperability between the evaluation recommendation by PCI and the preprints in preprint server. So to make sure that there is a good link between this evaluation recommendation and the preprint. That would be nice.
And finally, something that we would like to see evolve. So it's not really an evolution of PCI, but it's more an evolution of the publication system. It would be an ecosystem of publication where the journals have no more importance. I mean, we are very attracted by this model of publish, review, curate, the PRC system, where you publish your preprint or your registered report, and then we review it, like in a system like PCI, and then there is a curation of this peer-reviewed article, and the curation can be just to put a badge on an article, it can be to put a recommendation on an article, it can be to put it in a file, to put it in a book, to put it in a I don't know what. So it's a kind of curation, and in this model, the journals are not really needed anymore, and the version of record, the fact that you have a final version that is the last one, the latest one, that cannot evolve anymore, this version of record would not exist anymore, but there would be something like a record of versions. So the fact that you can record some different versions of the same article, and that your article has a life and it can evolve during this process of curation, even after a curation. And there are many people thinking about that, but this is very, very revolutionary, and there are very frequent resistance to this system, of course.
I can imagine also it doesn't have to be by the same authors. If it's really like a Wikipedia model, anybody can come and contribute and get recognition and credit for these incremental changes over the. Yeah, very interesting. So I was wondering, I think one of the things, like looking at the challenges that we've had with registered reports, it's like people hear this, you know, sounds wonderful, everything is great, but how do we know it's better? Show us the evidence that you know that registered reports are really better. And then, you know, at least in registered reports, the old model, there was one that I know of, randomized control trial comparing registered reports to non-registered reports. I'm just curious, like, what kind of quality indicators do you have or evidence to convince people that your model is like takes us the forward rather than, you know, just doing more of the same?
We have no data for that currently. Unfortunately, it will take experiment, like as you said, taking a bunch of papers and putting in PCI and non-PCI. There are data showing that articles deposited in preprints attract more attention and more citations than regular articles that goes directly to the evaluation process in journals. But currently, no, unfortunately, and we have no experiment for that. That will take some time to do.
No, currently we just have some very qualitative feelings about, for instance, the quality of the evaluation, but it's very qualitative and it's very personally based. It's very subjective. We have the feeling that the peer reviews of the article at PCI are of very good quality and are of better quality than what you can find in average journals. This is because we see all the reviews. Okay, we can read them and we can see them, and we have this feeling that they are of very good quality probably because they are published at the end of the process. So the reviewers, they pay attention to the quality of their peer reviews because they know that they will be published, even if they do not sign the article. But this is absolutely subjective. It is not quantitatively based, and we have not made blind experiments on this. We have been contacted by colleagues to participate to a big project to make such quantitative evaluation of the differential quality of the articles coming from PCI compared to articles in other processes. But we with Denis, we cannot put energy in this kind of thing because we have no time to do that. So we would be very happy if somebody did this kind of thing, okay? But we cannot participate to that, and so we have no real evidence of this, in fact.
Yeah, I think it would be exciting to try and think about this kind of thing, but obviously I don't expect this from PCI. I would like the community to do this. I just want to say, like, from my own personal experience, definitely the quality of what I see from peer community and registered reports is a few levels up from anything else that I've seen. I just would like a way to like demonstrate this with empirical evidence, but hopefully that's coming at some point.
Yep.
I think perhaps last question. It's a bit broad, but I think you perhaps have the most extensive experience with creating a change. So I've been, in my short career, have been really struggling, and I would just like some reflections or suggestions from your experience. Like, how are you able to drive this change? How to convince people to take part in this? How do you see kind of like somebody who wants to make a change in this kind of an environment? What are the key factors for success?
Well, I would say to make people know that the other will do the same. That's what we are doing with the PCI manifesto. Is like you won't be the only one to do that. So trust at the beginning, because at the beginning it's a question of trust. If I go do the other one, we'll do the same. So with the PCI manifesto, you say, okay, I can count on probably now 1,000 other scientists doing exactly the same. So I can trust that peer community journal, for example, will be a very good journal with good good papers published in it. I mean, this is what I mean by very good journal. So if I do this, even if now it is not well known, well recognized, I can trust that it will be the case in the next months or next years.
Yeah, but it's a very difficult question because it's very difficult to answer it because we are absolutely not sure that we have succeeded in doing what we want to do. Okay, in developing PCI, we are not sure that it's okay because we still receive a few papers. We have maybe this year we will receive 200 submissions. It's okay, but it's not a fantastic invasion of the world. So we are not sure that we succeeded, so we are not sure how to succeed, and probably we would need more advice on how to succeed. And if you have good answers to this question, Gilad, do not hesitate to share your advice with us because I think we really need advice on this. In fact.
Yeah, you've had remarkable success with our team. We've submitted like 20 in the last year and hopefully 20 more coming in the next year. And this is grassroots, right? So I work with early career researchers. If each one of those will take it to their lab and then do more of that, hopefully it will be like an exponential growth. That's my dream, at least. Great. I see one more question. I think we still have a bit of time. So Frida asks, thanks for the interesting and detailed talk. As a student who is planning to submit her first registered reports in a few months, the publishing system is very daunting. I wonder what you see as the future of publishing research in multidisciplinary topics. I'm working on human-robot interaction plus psychology. It seems to me that cross-disciplinary research could find it difficult to find the right journal to publish, and PCI could be a solution, giving more flexibility to authors. Do you have something to say about the cross-disciplinary and maybe early career researcher advice?
Yeah, that's still a problem with PCI because the PCI are still disciplinary or object centers, like PCI forest and wood sciences, for example. It's an object, so you can have several studies and several fields of research in forest science. So I'm not sure we will have like a PCI in human-robot interaction or psychology, but still, I mean, using peer community in registered reports. Once you have your registered reports validated, you can publish it directly to peer community journal. And that make an interdisciplinary journal because registered reports can be for every kind of reports. So you can use peer community journal for publishing.
And also, just a small compliment. So we are not very good at these multidisciplinary things. Okay, that's for sure. But we try to increase our quality. And a way to do that is that if you get an evaluation and a recommendation in one PCI, then you can get a recommendation without any more evaluation in another PCI. Okay, so you can have multiple recommendations from multiple PCIs for the same article. You can do that. So in the publish, review, curate model, you can be curated by more than one service for the same article. And we try to do that. We have not done that in the fact. In the experience of PCI, this has not been used already, but it can be done. There is a way to do that in the back office of PCI. So it's a way to apply.
Nice. Do you have something specific, let's say, for early career researchers that you would say in connection to PCI?
So just about this fear to use PCI in the peer community journal compared to using more standard journals with impact factor, etc. I would say that if we could get something like 5 or 10% of the papers of a community, it would be great. Okay, so imagine that you are an early career researcher and you dedicate 10% of your article to PCI. For you, it will be at no cost, I think, because it's only 10% of your article. And for us, it will be fantastic. So do use PCI and peer community journal for some of your papers, not a lot, maybe one each 10 articles, and it would be really great. And also, if you want to use PCI more frequently, you can use PCI and then go to the PCI-friendly journals, if there are PCI-friendly journals that are in your field, of course. And with it, I think it's great. And something that you have to know also is that early career researchers is our principal target. So the most motivated authors that use PCI are young authors, and they are early career researchers. And they are very motivated to use PCI. They are motivated not to use the classic journals. And so maybe there is something very positive there.
Complete this. I don't know, Gilad, your feeling, but for young researcher, I don't see any cost for using registered reports and PCI registered reports. Because at the end, there are so many journals that will accept your paper. So I guess it's only benefit for people for going through PCI registered reports. That will be a bit different from the regular PCI. But in the case of PCI registered reports, I will encourage, so I have no longer students currently, but I will have PhD students and young researcher. I would say, go through PCI registered reports, validate your studies and your protocols, do the studies, and then it will be just benefit for you.
Yeah, I think it's the fear of deviating from the accepted norms and having a bit of uncertainty about how the process works. And for that, I think two things for Frida to just suggest. First is, before you become an author, you can be a reviewer. I don't know exactly how it works, like what your level is. If you're a PhD student or postdoc, definitely I think it's possible to take part and see this up close as part of a few other reviewers, and having a recommender who is guiding you and see how that works from within. Second thing, if you're at HKU, you're welcome to, of course, contact me and we can talk more about that. We have a team of early career researchers that try to support one another. So definitely there's, to me, it's really encouraging. Just need to get over the barrier of thinking that something is daunting. But I think once they start getting into it, I think even for me, like undergraduates, when I explain to them what register reports are, or generally this process of reviewing preprints, the main reaction is, wait, isn't this how science works? I expected this to be science. And we need to explain to them, we're very sorry, we created this monster of a system where it's completely something different. And now we're trying to bring this back to what science should be. So it's interesting. Well, thank you so much. This was terrific. I am very glad for the chance to talk to you. Hopefully more chances in the future, perhaps in person someday.
Gilad, by the way, we would like really to thank you about all what you are doing for PCI registered reports, because you are the one that's submitting the most of the paper, I mean, a lot of the paper to PCI registered reports. It's fantastic. I said before Thomas was here, we were listening to your talks you did on PCI and PCI registered reports, and they are fantastic talks, and that really helps in setting PCI and promoting PCI. That's really nice from you.
Thank you. I'll try whatever I can in order to make this happen together with you and the community. This is what science should be. So thank you everybody for participating. I'll send some links and recordings afterwards to those who registered. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you to you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Gilad.
Bye.
Bye.